The Colours That Blind, Chapter 53, Ambuya's Story. A few weeks after we had buried Fugawa, I stood by the side of the road, staring at the wounded man Tawana had called me to attend to. "There's a man who's been shot. Thandiwe, please, Nurse Edwards has asked for you to come quickly." He had almost shouted from the gate of the farmhouse. Matthew, who had been working on the bus's truck, took his attention away from under the bonnet and insisted he was coming with us. And as I watched the deep red that soaked the wounded man's torn shirt, I deeply longed to tell Nurse Edwards, to tell them all, that I knew nothing about nursing. I had not finished my training. Had they forgotten? "Thandiwe, hurry and press your hands on his side before he bleeds out," Nurse Edwards ordered, eyes focused on the man lying on the grass. I nervously knelt down beside him, opposite Nurse Edwards. "Press your hands here, Tandy," she repeated, pointing to the mess of red under his shirt. "You must hurry, otherwise we will lose him." "He won't let me touch him," she said, with an urgency in her voice. My eyes stayed on the man's face for a while. Then I nodded and pressed one hand on top of the other over the gaping wound. "I'll be damned if I let him die without doing everything we can for him," Nurse Edwards said, tearing a strip of cloth from her sleeve and handing it to me to help stop the bleeding. "But we must get him out of here. Bring the wheelbarrow closer, Matthew," she ordered him. Tawana looked up at the buzzing helicopter in the distance. I tried to keep my heart steady, not pressing too hard with my palms and paining the man's torn skin. I repeated it in my head so I would not forget, even though I could hear Nurse Edwards spitting out the instructions clearly. "Wipe. Press down with his shirt to stop the bleeding. Feel for the pulse, but don't remove pressure." "Move him into the wheelbarrow," Nurse Edwards barked at Matthew, who now just stood there. He also looked up at the helicopter in the distance. He scratched his head. "Maybe we should leave if he's not going to make it. What if they find us with him? Won't they think we're helping him with whatever it is that got him into this state?" We all looked at Matthew, trying to understand what he had said. "You want us to leave a man to die on the side of the road? You want us to stand up and walk away?" Nurse Edwards asked, puzzled. I continued to press on the man's wound as he groaned, sweating beads of pain. Tawana moved closer. "Help me carry him, Matthew. We're not letting this man die," he said, ignoring Matthew's hesitation. The man screamed as though something had burned him, his eyes filling with anger as they alighted on Matthew. "It's no use, he won't let me touch him anyway," Matthew said. I looked up uneasily at the helicopter that seemed so close to us now, though we were partially hidden under the trees. If the forces found me here with a comrade, they would not let me out of the cell this time. And yet if the comrades found me with Matthew, it would be the end for us all. Nurse Edwards winced and tried to conceal her slight panting. "Are you all right, Nurse Edwards?" I asked, watching her. "We need to decide how to get this man into the wheelbarrow," she continued, as though she had not heard me. Tawana leaned in and put his arm under the man's back, signalling me to help him lift his weight. The man screamed again and winced as he pushed Tawana off him with every bit of strength he had in him. "We should never have let you go. Now look at you running around for the enemy," he spat at Tawana, now trying to stand up. I frowned in confusion as Tawana and Nurse Edwards exchanged a glance. "Tawana, what is he talking about?" Matthew asked, his face tight. Tawana ignored Matthew and continued to try to convince the man. "Comrade, we have to get you to the clinic or you'll die here. We're wasting time." "Tawana," Matthew's voice trembled. "Have you forgotten how they almost killed you? What is going on here? Have you brought them here, Thandiwe?" "Me? How could I possibly have brought this man here? Was I not at the house with you all day?" I said, anger seeping into me and pushing my hands harder on the man's wound, not feeling Nurse Edwards yank at my arm to remind me to calm down. Matthew was still looking at me. "This is your fault. They have become accustomed to coming here because they know they'll get help." "Are they monkeys that you shouldn't speak of them as though they return because they're given food?" "They might as well be," he shouted, his voice carrying above the buzzing of the helicopter. "Just leave, Matthew. Leave and do nothing like you always do." My words struck him like venom from a snake, but he wasn't finished. You need to bloody stop acting like everything in this damn world is about you and your skin. I am getting tired of... Tired? What do you know about being tired? Don't you dare judge how I fight death for the dignity of my life while you stand there in the shelter of your privilege. Because you have no idea, Matthew, none. You have no idea about oppression, no idea what it feels like. Shut up, both of you. Have some respect for the man. He is dying, Tawana burst out. We looked at him, embarrassed that we had demanded an audience to watch our world catch fire. Tawana's eyes were calm as he sat next to the dying comrade. Matthew and I watched in silence as his lips moved in prayer, words hidden in the breath of the trees. Nurse Edwards sat there rocking lightly. Tawana's eyes slowly shifted to me, then to Matthew. We all watched as the comrade drank in his last sights of the world, pieces he would carry with him before he left us. We sat there for a minute longer before Nurse Edwards pulled herself up and waddled like a duck that has had too much to eat, heading for the wheelbarrow we had bought from Boss Rogers. Once she'd sat down, she panted steadily and looked at Matthew. You'd better push this thing to the clinic as fast as you can. I'm not telling this baby she was born in a wheelbarrow.